Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Marco Collective Gamer CG77 here, and today we're doing a quick overview of King of Fighters 1995 for the Neo Geo AES. Of course, has been released on other systems digitally, and still can pick it up physically off eBay or other reseller sites as well. With the success of the introduction of King of Fighters 1994, SNK in just under 1 year, of course, releases King of Fighters 95. While there weren't huge changes, they did streamline the gameplay a little bit. It's a little bit faster. It does still have some of that SNK goodness when it comes to the CPU, somehow knowing just the right time to jump up in the air and knock you back. King of Fighters 95, of course, has some other improvements as well, such as, of course, being able to edit your own teams, which is nice if you like to mix and match your team instead of just going by the set teams from 1994. You also do lose the American team, but in their place, they did include a new Japanese team, which has Eiji Kisagari from Art of Fighting 2, Billy Kane from Fatal Fury, and also Iori Yamagami, who is his first appearance. This, of course, has been Kyo's rival through pretty much all of the King of Fighters series. The enemy still is Rugal, and also starts off the Orochi Powers storyline as well. As I previously mentioned, the speed and the pace of the fights have been increased just a tinge. The health bars, of course, drop down in no time, and you will definitely take some damage, which King of Fighters has always been known to do. There are, of course, some unbalanced things in the gameplay as well, but, considering how old this game is and where it started, it's to be expected. It's definitely not the most balanced game, but I think definitely one of the fun. I think King of Fighters, throughout all its years at least, has kept that as a constant. The game does play pretty much the same as it did in 1994, which is not surprising considering they had less than a year to release and make King of Fighters 95. Block damage is handled a little bit differently, and in fact now some of the super moves gives you a ton of tick damage. Sometimes more damage than if you didn't block it, which is kind of funny. The roster has pretty much remains the same, except of course for the removal of the American team and the different boss team that was brought in, which has a boss from Art of Fighting 2, of course Billy Kane from Fatal Fury, and of course the introduction of Yori. Every character now has a quick attack they can do immediately after doing a dodge, so it does make that a bit more tactically useful. So you do get to play some mind games as well with that, and what makes the most sense to do next. Besides the some of the damage levels, the overall graphics has been animated just a little bit better. The nice thing about the King of Fighters series in general, of course, is always the roster and the backgrounds itself, especially with the earlier titles from basically 1994 all the way up through 99. I will kind of cover this later as we get into the 2000s gameplay, but I think a lot of the backgrounds unfortunately lost its splendor once you got past the year 2000 in regards to the gameplay itself. The nice thing about it, the little kind of surprises in the animations in the background, there's a lot of hidden details. And the wonderful thing in 94 and also of course in 95 is with all the different layers of parallax, it gives the 2D game almost a 3D feel, or at least a diorama feel, especially if you're paying attention to the background. King of Fighters 94, of course, was also ported to the PlayStation and Saturn, and so was 1995. Fortunately, with King of Fighters 95 import Sega Saturn, it was actually one of the first games that came with a 1 meg RAM card, which helped speed up load times, and still we were able to keep a lot of the animations. The 94 and 95 versions of King of Fighters for the PlayStation 1 unfortunately had a lot of cut animations, character sizes were a little bit smaller, and of course the dreaded load time from only having a double speed CD-ROM drive. You're a fan of the Neo Geo hardware and its sound, and this actually has a great soundtrack. Back in the day, unfortunately, we were not quite as lucky when it came to the 1994 and 95 versions on the Sony PlayStation and the Saturn, as there were some cuts that needed to be done and some editing that happened to both the sound effects and the quality of the music. Fortunately, if you did have it on the Neo Geo CD, MVS, or AES, the music was, of course, arcade perfect. The only negative, of course, with the Neo Geo CD was the single speed CD-ROM till they released a double speed. Um, Actually, right now, if you have a Neo Geo CD and you decide to pick up the Polymega, which honestly I thought was going to be vaporware, but I guess a lot of people are receiving it now, you can actually copy it, your original, to the hard drive to save your disc, and it basically loads like a cartridge. So, great way to also have arcade gameplay and still have it be straightforward and while having a physical copy. Of course, the game is available still on Switch, Sony PlayStation, Microsoft Xbox, PC. It's fortunately not hard to get. It's even being released on the Android, and of course, some Neo games just started this week to be released on iOS. It was released in the arcades of June of 1995, and as I mentioned, of course, is a sequel to The King of Fighters 1994, and has been released on several different systems. And the nice thing about the team edit feature, it does allow you to create your own custom team, so you can use your favorites from each team. And honestly, at this point, one of the nice things that I do like about King of Fighters is that every character mostly plays differently, except of course for the Art of Fighting team, where everybody's some version of a Shoto. But it's nice to be able to mix and match and find different characters that have different play styles that could counter possible other foes. As you can see in this video here, I am getting my butt kicked by Athena and Clark, which I've always had a hard time fighting against for some odd reason. And of course, King of Fighters 95, not just being a sequel, also began as a project to help introduce Yori Yagami as Kyo Kusanagi's rival. Of course, gave him traits that were counter to Kyo as well. And of course, throughout the years, Yori has definitely gained in popularity as much, if not sometimes more, than Kyo himself. For 1995, you've got the Hero Team, also known as Japan Team or the Protagonist Team, who stars Kyo Kusanagi, Benimaru Nikaido, and Goro Diamond. The Fatal Fury Team, also known as the Garu Densetsu Team, is, of course, the seminal Terry Bogard, Andy Bogard, and Joe Higashi. For the Art of Fighting team, I admit one of my favorites just because they are Shotos, as known as the Kyokugen Ryu team. You have Ryo Sakazaki, Robert Garcia, and Ryo's father, Takuma Sakazaki. You do have the Ikari Warriors team, starting Hyden, Ralph, Jones, and Clark still, and I always have a hard time against Clark. For the Cycle Soldier team, you've got Atena Asimiya, Seikonsu, and Shingen Sai. Again, have a hard time with Athena as well. For the women's fighting team, you do have King from Art of Fighting, Mai Shiranui, and Yuri Sakazaki. Then you've got the Korea Justice team, who's Kim Kap-won, Chang Kohen, and Choi Bonji. For the Rivals team, also known as the Yagami team, you've got Yori Yagami, Eiji Kasaragi, and Billy Kane. For the sub-boss, you do have Seisyu Kusanagi, which is Kyo's father who has been brainwashed. Omega Rugal still is the boss of King of Fighters 95 as well. In regards to the stages, you do have Osaka, Japan, which is the home stage for the Hero team, the Mediterranean Sea stage for the Fatal Fury team, the Dojo from the Art of Fighting team, Middle East and Brazil as the Ikari Warriors team. Middle East or Brazil is the Ikari Warriors team. For China, you've got the Psycho Soldier team. The Illusion Bar in England is the Women's Fighting team. The Korea Forest is the Korea Justice team. And the Abandoned Factory in New York is for the Rivals team. For the boss stages, you've got the Black Nova stage, also known as the Missile Base, and the Missile Base Balcony. As part of the gameplay changes from 1995, from 1994, Kyo's close standing heavy kick is revamped into a special move, and his old 88 Shiki sweep kick is now a command normal. He does lose his original directional jumping light punch attack. Joe is the only character in 1995 that has a change in input in regards to his desperation move. And with the introduction of King of Fighters 95, I think SNK really starts to get into their groove of where they really want to take the King of Fighters series. The Orochi Saga is definitely one of my favorite fighting game series as far as storyline arcs in quite a while. I also do, of course, like their Dream Match in 1998 and, of course, 2002 as well, but I'll be covering those separately. The graphics have gotten even better. I think the pacing with that increased speed definitely helps the gameplay. This is the arcade version here that you're seeing. So of course you've got the standard arcade difficulty. Definitely not as easy as playing when you play the Switch versions done by ACA or Hamster. And as SNK is firing on all cylinders, I can't wait to review, or should I say do an overview, of King of Fighters 96, which is also one of my favorites in the series. I mean, like I said honest before, King of Fighters is one of my favorite fighting game series of all time. So, everyone, thanks for watching. You can, of course, pick up all these games digitally from a fairly cheap price of $3.99 to the regular price of $7.99. That's on the Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, and even PC. So, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and comment.